Prior to the community presentation, it's dated 6/1.
Yes. No, whatever you just sent me, I've already downloaded. All right, let me clear my screens.
Oh, good, thanks.
I have a little bit here.
Oh, okay.
Thank you very much.
You want to walk on?
Just in case I.
All right, welcome everybody. Welcome aboard. We are here for a community zoning meeting. It is June 1st. I don't know how we got to June so quickly, but it is June 1st. It's 5:37. We are here for a community zoning meeting to consider a requested change for 2878 South Throop. It is currently zoned single-family residential. They are requesting a change for a B2-2. We have with us the owners of the property, the applicants, Andrew, and oh my God, why am I forgetting your name? Diane, thank you. I said your name right before you came in, that Diane and Andrew were coming. The Macs are here. Their attorneys are here as well. Jimena, are you going to be giving the presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, I'm over to you.
All right. Thank you,
And I will
everyone.
navigate for you. Just tell me when you're ready for the next slide.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Jimena Castro. I'm a zoning attorney at Acosta Esger, and with me as well is my law firm partner, Rolando Acosta, who is also present via Zoom. Thank you for the opportunity to allow us to present tonight. We will be as efficient as possible so everyone can return to their families for dinner time. And as the Alderwoman shared, we are proposing a rezoning at 2878 South Throop Street. If you would like to go to the next slide. So this particular property, as everyone knows, is on the corner of Throop and Lyman, and it is zoned RS3. It is improved with a two-story building. As everyone knows, the ground floor is a vacant commercial space that previously hosted small events. And then the second floor is a residential unit where Diane and Andrew live with their family. There is also one indoor parking space at the rear of the property. We are proposing to rezone this to a B22, and the rezoning will merely allow to legalize the commercial use. So we're thinking of a yoga studio, perhaps maybe a dance studio, something that's very light, sort of like a holistic type of approach. We're not thinking like a 7-Eleven or anything, but more of like a yoga studio, something like that along that line. The residential unit where Diane and Andrew live will remain. We're not proposing any changes to the building. There are no building additions. This is merely to legalize a commercial use on the ground floor. The parking space will remain. And in the future, if Diane and Andrew are thinking to switch over to residential on the ground floor, they will be allowed that as well in a B2. The B2 allows for ground floor residential use. So that is what we're proposing for this rezoning. There's no building additions or anything like that. It's merely to allow ground floor commercial space use. If you go to the next slide, please. Zoning map of the area, just to see where we are. As I mentioned, we're on that corner, that green dot. I always like to include the zoning map. The next slide as well, please. So this is the ground floor. You can see it was constructed to be a commercial space, as some of the businesses, buildings across the street also have that ground floor sort of aesthetic that it could be a commercial space. And as I mentioned, Diane and Andrew live on the second floor. Next slide. This is just to show towards the rear of the building where that indoor parking space is, and also the view of the side of the building. And then you can see also there's another entrance to the commercial space on the side on Lyman. Next slide. This is the same side of the street, just to show what is there, the buildings next door. Next slide. This is across the street. Again, I mentioned there's several buildings that have sort of that aesthetic where the ground floor could be commercial, could be some sort of retail, and certainly the two properties across have that ground floor potential. Next slide. This is just more views of the property, the surrounding properties in the area. Next slide. And this is looking down on Lyman. You can see towards the right side of your screen, if you zoom in, there's an entrance to the commercial space. You can kind of see that entrance there. And then if you move further down, you'll see the garage entrance as well. Next slide. This is the interior of the ground floor commercial space as it is right now. So as you can see, the floors are beautiful. Definitely could be some sort of, dance studio, yoga studio, something like that. And then more interior views of the space. It also has a kitchen in the back. More kitchen views. And then in the back, we have the staircase leads to Diane and Andrew's residential unit above. So this would be, since they are in the building, they own the building, they live in the building, they, certainly will take care that whatever use occurs in this building does not disturb their family that lives above on the second floor or anything like that. So they're very much invested to ensure that whatever business is here is respectful of their units and also of the people in the surrounding area. So we can open it up for questions.
I'm going to stop sharing here, and here's where I'll do my public service announcement. For any of you who have not been to one of our community zoning meetings before, we hold these for every zoning change that's requested. It is intended for the applicants to be able to present what they're requesting the change for, allow for neighbors and other concerned residents to ask questions, raise concerns that they may have about the proposed changes. So we're at the point now where we will open it up for questions. Generally speaking, when we have these things that always come up are parking concerns and trash. Just ensuring that those are sort of the baseline sort of things that generally come up in these meetings. Whether or not I support a zoning change, well, I'm not under any obligation to make a decision today, and depending on the feedback, we'll go from there. I like for these to be very transparent and a dialogue. If there's concerns that can be addressed by the owners and with, changes to, I don't know, like if trash is a concern and you wanted to, people, let's say your neighbors wanted to make sure that the commercial trash is not sitting outside, maybe you agree to put a dumpster in the garage or something like that. Those are the types of things that we're going to try to have a discussion about here. So with that, I'm going to open it up for questions. If you have a question, sorry, go ahead. If you've got a question online, why don't you, if you can use the raise your hand function, that would probably be best because we have 22 people online right now. And I'm going to ask that folks mute their lines if they're not speaking. But I'm going to leave Jimena, I'll leave you unmuted so that you can answer questions if there are any sort of legal questions. I'll open up with, I think most people are not really familiar with what a B2 zoning category means. Can you provide just some examples of what you can have versus what you cannot have in a B2 in terms of business uses?
Sure. So for a B2, the benefit of a B2 is that it could be either sort of a very light sort of commercial, like retail, but very low, like it says relatively low sort of retail, so not a lot of cars would be frequented. Again, it's not like a 7-Eleven, not like a grocery store. It's defined as the market demand for retail and services relatively low. Also allowing residential use as well. So sometimes buildings have ground floor commercial space and it doesn't work out, and then they convert that space to a residential unit. So that is the benefit of having a B2. Go ahead.
I was just going to add, because there may be some who are worried about a use like a venue, a banquet facility, and if they wanted to have anything like that, the B2 would not allow that directly. There have to be a separate process to get that allowed. It's not what is intended, but I just wanted to make people aware it's also not going to be something that is straight up permitted.
Got it. So I see that there's a question in the chat. asking about how long you've owned the property.
About
2 years.
2 years.
So the answer to that question is 2 years. Maggie, I think you were the one that asked that question. I'm trying to make good use of the space, but then I lose track of the chat, so let me pull that up. You've owned the building for 2 years, and I know you've been in the community longer than that.
Yeah, my family's from the community, so I went to funerals at that. I had family that was waked in that building, you know,
But we were on
yeah, but
Green
we've,
Street.
we've owned and lived in the community for almost 20 years.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure folks understood that as well. You've been in the community a long time. Other questions or concerns from folks that are here in the room?
I don't have a question, but I have concerns.
Sure.
I believe Zinnia, when she pointed out what B2
Jimena,
is. Zinnia, but I'm still skeptical that it may turn into something else. Even though Rolando pointed out that it cannot turn into something else. They've already done us the favor of turning it into something else without permission. They turned it into a venue, I'm sure you know, with no permission. So that's already happened. Same concerns that everyone's gonna have parking the trash. But my take is more about, so we knew it was a disaster the last time it happened. The police were called. There was a shouting match in the street. They blocked Lyman with a car. And my concern is what happened after they got shut down. They weren't apologetic. They weren't even contrite about what happened. None of it was their fault. I wrote a few things down. I'm sure you saw the Block Club Chicago.
Yes.
You were quoted. I'm sure you saw that, which was not just posted on their front door. That went out to the whole city. The closure was racially targeted. I don't get it. They were running that business for 10 months. And it was fine. No, it wasn't. The history of the neighborhood is not welcoming. I like that one. The neighbor chose to get into a shouting match because they had the street blocked. Again, not their fault. And my favorite, it was only blocked for 15 minutes at a time. She should have just went around. Again, not my fault. The quote, and really, it's weak racially. To call someone racist it's weak. There's no evidence that anyone that called was racist. It was fun to watch people at their front door reading the parody about racist Bridgeport. Police went in to create citations, and the police were there just trying to be rude. None of that is cute, and I don't mention that to. I don't think it should be punitive. You can say whatever you want, but I think it speaks toward their attitude toward the community, toward us. You did something, and they actually did us a favor by trying it the first time. I think it should speak to what a fail it may be this time. You did it. It was a fail. You weren't contrite. I don't expect you to go knocking on everybody's door, but the finger got pointed at everyone else but them. I think that speaks to their attitude towards us. And I point that out, meaning, because you're kind of going out on a limb to allow anything there. And if you're going to go out on a limb for someone, you probably look for something in return. And this is what we've already gotten in return, was not our fault. It was your fault. I don't expect any respect from them. If there is anything that needs to be managed, I expect them to just make an excuse and say, oh, that wasn't our fault. That's just the neighbors. That's just Bridgeport. It's unwelcoming. I mention those things from that standpoint, not to be punitive. We got the right to say what they want. I don't think it's cute. I mention it from that standpoint.
No, I appreciate that. And I don't think it's unknown to most of the people in the room or the folks that are online. Yes, when we got notification, when this office got notification that there were events being held there, we do like we do when any other report is made like that of a business that's being run where it shouldn't be. We notify the city authorities, the ACP, and then the activity stopped. Right? I mean, like that. After that incident, it was stopped completely. Diane did subsequently come in to inquire about what the process would be to have this zoned properly for a business. And we explained to her, just because it was a funeral home before, you shouldn't make the assumption that it still is. Because at some point, at some point, at some point when it was last used as a funeral home, when you purchased it, it was downzoned to residential, right? It's clear that in that corridor, and like so many other places in the ward, inside the neighborhoods, there were corner stores that had commercial spaces. So I explained the process to her. I said, hey, this, for any zoning change, we have to go before the community, and we've got to have these discussions with folks. I don't think, I appreciate you raising it. I don't want it to be the elephant in the room. I want to be able to allow for Diane and Andrew, if they want to comment on this at all, that's completely up to them. I try to treat everybody fairly. They're property owners in the ward. They made a request, and when the request was formally made, that's when we put this on the book. So, I think it would be great for you. I mean, you've got neighbors around, and the whole reason I like to have these meetings, aside from just getting the input from the community, is because look, I think we can all say that this didn't get off to the best start. We'll just say it that way. So if there's an opportunity for you all to comment on what, I'm sorry,
Wayne.
thank you, Wayne, about what Wayne just raised. Happy for you to do so here. We can take a few more questions. If you want to address it now, if you want to do it later. I see there's another hand up as well.
We hear what you're saying, and yeah, and we're listening. So, and we understand. I mean, we did have to pay, lots of fines and things. So we got the message, and we're trying to do the right thing now.
Duncan, go ahead. And then Norma, I see your hand raised, and I will come back to you as soon as Duncan's done here.
Kiefer.
Oh, sorry.
Kiefer,
You're sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No problem. I live around the corner at Bondfield in Lyman, and I've also known Andrew and Diane for quite a while. And I've only known them to be like very warm and compassionate and caring members of this community. It sounds like that was a tense situation. I don't know the full story, so I don't want to speak too much to it, but what I can speak to is the fact that these are folks who care enough about this place to set down roots here and also want to try to better the community by opening up a small business. I think it's good when we have small businesses like this that are embedded in the neighborhood fabric. That's how Chicago used to be, as evidenced by a lot of the architecture in that vicinity. And I think it's nice when there's a little bit of vibrancy in the neighborhood to a reasonable degree. And I think, having two on this block is pretty reasonable and, contributes to what it's like to be in the city without making it something that's overwhelming. So I'm 100% for this, and I do have to go to a 6 o'clock meeting. So I appreciate you.
Thank you for being here.
To speak up, and I have to go now.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Norma, why don't you go ahead and go next?
Good afternoon, Alderwoman and neighbors. I have the same concerns that Wayne said in his comments. My concerns are also I have children here, my grandparents, my parents, and so I'm not sure what type of security would be available. Am I able to go out? It was just a very tense moment when all those people were on the street and we were just getting home. Some were home already, but some of us were just getting home from an event, and this just happened. So we weren't sure what was going to, what had happened and how it had happened and what the control was. The first time they had an event in the area, I think I was very nice, and I called them and told them, I said, hey, people that are in your party are parked on a residential area. Please give them a heads up. They're going to get tickets, right? So I gave her that courtesy call, and the car stood parked there till maybe about 7, 8 o'clock at night. Fine. Another thing is that after they were shut down, they did not respect that. They put a poster having a party over the big orange sticker. And I took a picture. So I want to know how they're going to continue respecting that and the law, and how are they going to continue handling their business instead of just doing that, blocking it there needs to be better communication with them in the neighborhood, introducing themselves little by little. And they did not do that. They just went all in and did these parties, did not respect the law. They covered it up. They still had parties. So I want to know what they're going to do to make that up.
I'll say that there were no more events that were hosted there afterwards. And the sticker was able to come down, although it was very difficult to take down once the fines were paid and we went before the court. And then for the other concerns about, large gatherings, as was mentioned earlier, that's not a use that's going to be permitted going forward anyway.
Yes.
Yeah. Hi everyone. My name is Eli. I live on Throop Street, like a block down from Diane and Andrew. And I actually want to bring up the fact that I think our previous friend mentioned that safety is really important. I just want to point out that again, I've lived in Bridgeport for 13 years, and we own property right down the street from them. And I think that safety is really important to these two. I want to mention that Andrew is a bike advocate and runs a kid family focused like biking event every month. I also see him as a crossing guard on Morgan Street, helping kids cross the street. So when I think about what's making our neighborhood safer, it's stuff like that. And it's not anything related to events. I know that there are some things that make me feel unsafe in this neighborhood, and it's people ripping their modified Charger vehicles down the road at 2 o'clock in the morning. It's not like folks riding their bikes or helping kids cross the street. So I think safety is really important, and I want us to ask ourselves as a community, like, what makes us safer? Is it knowing your neighbors and knowing that they have kids and their kids are playing with your kids, or is it sending a message to those folks that they're not welcome here and it's not welcome to have them be part of our community? So I just want to mention, I think safety is an important thing to think about.
Thanks for that, Eli. I'm just going to read a couple of comments that are in the chat, and then I think I saw another. Did you have? I'll get right back to you. Okay. The attorney discussed potentials for other businesses on the block. As of right now, this is a predominantly residential block with one business, a church. I fear that changing this zoning will change the atmosphere of the block. People live here, and it's quiet and peaceful from a vibe perspective. If this were to pass, what would be done to ensure that the energy of the block remains the same? In the past, parties were held without proper permits. If this turns back into a party venue again, will alcohol be served? If yes, what precautions will be taken to ensure drunk drivers are not a problem? How will our children be protected? So Andrew addressed this a second ago by saying that an event venue is not going to be allowed use. They're not going to lease to anybody that would want this to be used as an event venue.
So no alcohol at all? I mean, I know yoga studios that shut.
No, I want to talk. I'm not going to write this on the chat.
Okay, if you've got a question, just go ahead and raise your hand.
I'm telling you how to do it.
Alderwoman, can I just interject
Yeah,
for 1 second?
Go ahead.
So a venue is not the reason we've picked the B2 zoning is to sort of allay some of these concerns. So a venue is not permitted on the property, even under B2. So we can eliminate that from this rezoning. As far as the rest of the block, if something else wants to turn into a business, they would have to go through the exact same process that we're going through for this. So it's not like one gets another one. Each case is taken individually. And you'll obviously have a community meeting as to whatever that may be and get to voice your concerns about that. So I don't think this is going to change the nature of this block. It's just going to essentially bring back a commercial use where there once was one.
Got it.
By that, I mean the funeral home, not the venue.
Rolando, so there was a follow-up question in the room. Event venue is not something that is permitted as of right for a B2-3.
It's not even permitted as a special use.
It's not even permitted as, because yeah, you can't, first of all, you can't have a public place of amusement license in a residential area. And so I'm sorry, we should have said that from the top. You cannot, a public place of amusement license is something that you need if you're going to charge like a ticketed event, if you're going to have a comedy show, if you're going to do any sort of thing where people are being charged to walk in the door. Those are not allowed in residential areas or within 125 feet of a residential area. The follow-up question in the room was, so if it's a yoga studio and they have a baby shower, I don't know, is that allowed? where they would bring alcohol in, like like a small party, because this
So
we
a
see
party.
this. I see this happen all over the ward right now. I'm dealing with a lot of other places that are not licensed to be venues that are turning themselves into venues. So depending on who's in the room here, you might know of other places where this is happening. But so the question, it's a two-part question, Rolando, is that possible, legal? Is it legal for them to bring in alcohol even if they're not selling it themselves?
So an indoor event venue, which is what a banquet would be called, a baby shower party room, anything like that, is not permitted. So that's not legal. So you can't turn your yoga studio into an event venue. It's a yoga studios for yoga.
Grand opening of the yoga studio.
Okay.
I want to just, I'm trying to think of
Sure,
every
sure.
possible thing, because I want the questions sort of answered on the record too. Huh?
A
No,
grand
so
op-
the BYOB part of the question? Yeah, so can they bring alcohol in for any reason on their own
It would have to be, if somebody is serving alcohol to the public, it would have to be done by someone with a license, first of all. So that would have to be a caterer with a license. I'm not sure that a yoga operator could bring in alcohol and then serve it to the public, because they would not be licensed to bring alcohol and serve it to the public.
I'm gonna ask the question. I think the way the intention is because I think the concern from the community members.
Bring
Yeah.
the alcohol in.
I'm sorry.
Like, you know, like you go into a restaurant,
Uh-huh.
you have a bottle opening fee.
Yeah.
You can bring your own alcohol if they don't have an alcohol liquor license.
So let's say if
Can you do that with a B2?
Yeah, can they have can you do BYOB in a B2? Let's say it's a cafe, not a yoga studio. Let's say that a small cafe opens here and they're not licensed, they don't have a liquor license, but they say, oh, it's BYOB. Can they do that?
They can BYOB, yes, so long as they don't serve it to third parties. So you'd have to drink your own alcohol that you bring in. No different than sort of a party at your house. People could bring in their own alcohol. I know that that's not slightly different because it's not necessarily open to the public. But I think BYOB may be permitted so long as you're drinking your own alcohol. If you start serving it to third parties, I think there's an issue there because of the lack of license.
Yeah, all right. So do you have another question?
I have one little complaint.
Yeah, please.
I live on Lyman Street,
Uh-huh.
and I did not get a notification this meeting was even going on. I found out about a half an hour.
So notices,
Email to my house, or no mail to my house.
What,
I'm 2
where-
blocks away, Lyman and Bonneville.
so 2 blocks, the requirement is 250 feet, so
Okay.
they have to send out.
I talked to a few people on my block who are not for this because of parking mostly, because Throop Street is restricted parking.
Uh-huh.
And there's no parking. We have people who park for Maria's to buy our house. There is no parking. There's no place to park.
Got it. So
Besides everything that happened in the past that Wayne mentioned.
on top of all that,
Yes.
got it. Thank you for that. So the notice was sent out, it's been in my newsletter. And then we do that on top of the written notification. So, they only have to do 250 feet in either direction. So, it was not intentional to
No.
close people out. And if you have neighbors that aren't here, this is recorded. They can play this, and I'll make the commitment now. I won't make any decisions. I'll leave it open, to ensure that any other feedback that people want to provide to me in the process have time to do that. So please tell your neighbors, we'll post the link on Facebook and my newsletter before the end of the week, and then we'll leave it for, we'll leave it open for a couple of weeks before any decisions are made. That way I can have full feedback. And I don't want anybody to feel like they didn't have an opportunity to weigh in, given the sensitivity around this. Ling Yang, I saw your hand next. And then the iPhone will be next after that.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm Ling. I'm a neighbor on Throop Street, and I got to know Diane and Andrew just through on street encounters. And things happened in the past, but I can kind of speak to them about them outside of that house, about the event situation. Andrew, like someone else mentioned, organized a family kid bike rides every month. And I think that's one of the events that really brings the family excited together, brings livelihood to the community. And Diane's extremely involved in 2 different schools, in Alma and Velma. She knows everything that's going on. She keeps parents informed. I think she's a huge asset to the neighborhood. And in addition to that, I don't think those things really define, just that one incident really define who they are. And another example, I had my car was having issue. It was beeping for 2 minutes. Diane was the first person to come out to just kind of check on the neighborhood to see what's going on. There was my next door neighbor that came out, and Diane, who is 5 houses down. No one else came out. I'm like, wow, I'm so glad to have someone who care enough to come out and just be like, hey, does someone else need help? So I just want to, I would love the opportunity in the future for people to get to know them. You see Diane walking on the garden, her beautiful roses. Andrew is always riding his bike and picking up multiple kids for other people as well. So I think there's a lot of logistics that needs to work out, and I'm would love to participate in those conversations. But I think the past does not define who they will be as a business owner in the future.
Thank you, Ling. The person with the iPhone that has their hand raised, you can ask your question now.
It's not so much, it is a question too. Guess what is
Or make a comment. Go ahead.
What are there going to be their things for who they're going to try and rent these buildings to? Because as a business with these parties that they've had, they haven't made very good choices, because every time there is a party over there, it's a disturbance in the neighborhood. They're blocking the alleys. I live over on Farrell, which is just a block over from them. They block the alleys, people coming through for these parties. There's people standing on a corner smoking weed. They're drinking. It's causing a disturbance to the neighborhood, besides of everything that what the people are saying that they are doing. So what are they going to do to change? If they were running a business like that already, that's kind of their mindset of what they're going to do. Who are they going to rent to? So that's what we want to do. This is a very kind of close neighborhood. We all kind of look out for each other with our neighbors where we're at. So what are they going to change?
An alderman, there has been a consistent disregard with them in the way they park their vehicles outside of the alley. I've taken countless photographs of them blocking the alley and parking right off of the little entryway into that garage, which originally, of course, was used as a funeral parlor. And of course, there was no parking allowed. However, every time we come in or out, the van or the vehicle is right up there, so we can't see coming out. There's been at least 2 situations where we almost got hit because there was an oncoming car and we had no way of viewing what those oncoming cars were coming at to our cars. And now I have young boys driving, my husband's driving, my mother-in-law is driving. Some of our cars are lower, some of them are higher, but regardless, that disregard for them to continue parking that way is only going to be exacerbated by whatever business they choose if there are no rules set from the get-go. I mean, the funeral was there, and they always noted, hey, there's going to be a funeral or a wake or whatever the case may be. So we always knew to not park in those areas, or that was a very limited time, 2, 3, 4 hours. But this is a consistent parking method. And I mean, do I want to bombard your email with photographs of how our neighbors park? No, they should know the rules of the road. Very simple.
Thanks for that. Andrew, do you want to talk about the parking
I
situation?
think they're talking about our vehicle that we park on the street, which is parked in a legal area. I mean, as people know, you can park up to the alley. We don't park across the alley. I will also say that our alley neighbor, who lives directly across the alley from us on the corner of Farrell and Lyman, and Galdino is his name. They are supportive of us having a business there. He's not very tech savvy, so he was not able to get onto the Zoom today, but and that's a 3 flat unit over there, and he lives in the middle unit, and they are supportive of us, and he said he would send a letter. But if there are problems with parking, you know, it's a legal parking space in that area. So
And the members of that unit also park their truck in the exact same way across the alley. So
Yeah, the other. But as far as other parking, you know, again, if it's not being used as a venue, we really don't anticipate this being an issue.
Okay, I'm gonna go to some comments that are in the chat and I'll come back to whoever's hand is still raised over here. So I would say, I want to just close out this parking issue though. If you feel like there's a challenge or it's causing a safety hazard, I'm gonna tell you right now, Andrew's not somebody that's gonna try to cause a safety hazard for any driver, pedestrian, or bicyclist. That much I can tell you from what I know of Andrew. He's a very big advocate for safety. And if you feel, and I know that you can park right up into the alley, so if there isn't somebody behind you, can you make an effort to back up off of that? I think in general, anybody parking, if you can help it, because I know how hard parking is in general. It is hard coming out of an alley when there's cars parked right up into the opening of the alley. And if you'd be open to people calling you about that, but I like for everybody to be neighborly as much as possible. So, you know, so I'm sure if someone asked you to move and you had the ability to do that, you would. All right, I'm looking at a question here. How many current businesses are zone B2-2? I'll get to you next. Or similar zoning to that being sought and legally operating on the block or even adjacent blocks. South Throop is not even an arterial business district. Also, there are plenty of empty business spaces on Halsted and a few on South Morgan Street. Jimena, did you do any sort of study about that at all?
I mean, there's an auto store.
Yeah, so we have sorry.
Go ahead.
So north on Archer, it's all B. It's B1, B3. And then if you go south to the next major street, I'm pulling it up right now. I don't know if I can share my screen or not.
Actually, no, I'll pull up a zoning map. Hold on.
Yeah.
I can
So if you go down to 31st, then you have the B zoning as well.
It's like watching a kettle boil right now. 2878. So this is where the property is currently, and obviously you can see all of this is zoned residential here. If we go further south towards 31st Street is when you're gonna start to see B districts. I'm sorry, this is like the most annoying map to toggle. There's all this pressure, everybody watching.
So yeah, 31st and then Archer have the B districts.
Yeah.
There's a B2-3 on right across from the park.
Yeah, then Grattan.
Grattan.
Yeah, so all
that one is like a social services facility.
So most of the stuff along like 31st and Morgan on that side of the street where Bridgeport Coffee is, that's B2-2, which is essentially what is being sought here. Across the street, it's B3-1. I think that's mostly because there's auto mechanics on that side.
There's a dentist in there.
Yeah. So I wanted to at least answer that question. Yeah, and yes, there are still vacancies in a few places in the ward. How many yoga studios are in Bridgeport? This is a middle-class neighborhood, not Lincoln Park.
They're nice things too.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yoga studio.
I'm gonna just go scroll through the comments real quick, and I know you've got a question. I haven't forgotten about it.
I just wanted to respond.
Oh, yeah,
to
please,
that.
go ahead.
Throop Street used to be called Main Street before renaming back in 1909 because it was an arterial street. And every single property along that stretch and down Lyman was a business. And the real crime is that they were ever downzoned in the first place. Right? That was what killed businesses and small businesses that people love to reminisce about on Facebook pages. Like, why did we ever close these things in the first place? In that very property was an illegal business before they moved in. There was a church operating. Did you know that? Did you know there was an illegal?
No, I didn't
business
know
there?
that.
Oh,
I
okay.
sure knew when they opened
Yeah.
their illegal business, so everyone knew that.
What about the illegal bakery that operated across the street? Did you know about that one?
That probably predates me moving there. I've only been there like 20 years, so.
No, it
No,
was
no,
there
no,
like
no,
5 or 6 years
No,
ago.
no, I do remember. You're right. I did remember that.
Yeah, that wasn't a problem then.
You're right, it wasn't an event venue. There was 1 or 2 people walking into the bakery.
Still
There
illegal.
wasn't 40 or 70 people.
What about the private club that operates on Lyman and Loomis? Worry about drunk driving. Used to be a bar. Southeast corner.
That's not a private club. That's my brother-in-law's house. It's not a private club.
Oh, they just have a pool table and a bar in it. My bad, I forgot.
Well, it used to be a bar. I don't know
Yes.
how this turned into this.
But because what I'm saying is that there are problems in the neighborhood and they are not specific to this venue.
And
I
just wanted to,
Yeah, so,
Sounds like you are.
well,
No, no, I'm not. If there's a meeting every week for all the rest of the problems in the neighborhood, I'll show up if you want me here. I'm here for this one because I live on this block.
I live around the corner from them. I live behind them. And I've never had a problem with any of the parties they have.
so I think, Rolando, go ahead, and then I'm making.
I was just going to say, we keep going back to the venue, and I understand the problems of the past with the venue. But the bottom line is there will not be a venue here. It will not be permitted. They got the message that they couldn't operate here. The zoning is not going to allow a venue. What they're trying to do is a small neighborhood business here. A yoga studio, a cafe, I guess an office could be here. Something that is low intensity that is found throughout the city in residential neighborhoods. It's not uncommon to have these on the corners.
Hold on 1 second, because there was a hand here. Joe, I'm gonna let you go after. I'm just gonna, I don't want this to devolve into a sort of back and forth. I think what I'm hearing and what I've heard from the neighbors, especially when this happened, was that many neighbors, not all, so I'm not trying to say all,
Not even those.
I got outreach from folks, from quite a few people. Was it everybody on the block? No. But for somebody to reach out, I have to take every single complaint seriously, so I do. I think there were a good number of people and a couple of people here in the room and online who I think felt very disrespected by what transpired with the disturbance on the street. And you can't just block traffic, even if it is just for 15 minutes like that. You can't do that. That notwithstanding, then the response afterwards was offensive to some folks. I mean, I think you have to accept that it was. However it was intended, that is absolutely how it landed with a lot of people. Which, I don't want to speak for those of you who are neighbors who, I mean, you mentioned it earlier, Wayne. It's not the best foot to start off of. I will say that after that happened again, Diane came in and talked to me about how to legalize it. Which is why we're having this conversation. Again, I want to treat everybody fairly. They're property owners. If you were a property owner, you have every right to ask for a zoning change like this. It's a P2-2 because they're not sure if they're going to be able to rent it out as a business for one of these lower intensity purposes. This leaves them the option to potentially convert that to an apartment, and that could also be a ground floor apartment unit. So there's no guarantee. What everybody has said, not everybody, but the attorneys, the property owners, it will not be an event venue. I think for some assurances for the community, I again, don't want to speak for everybody, but things that I'm picking up on are there's concerns because of what's happened in the past, that there's some trust that needs to be built around what's going to go in and when something is in, what that's going to look like should this zoning change be allowed. So Joe, will you ask your question?
I was just gonna.
Or make a comment?
I was just gonna say, sounds like good people, but it seems like there's a trust issue. And this is a question not for you, it's more for your attorney. I forget the name of him. He said that.
Rolando.
Yeah. I believe you mentioned there's a separate process if it was going to have anything beyond that shift in status. Could you describe what that process would look like? Is there a chance for community input if that were to happen to sort of help establish trust in the process and each other?
Absolutely. So if they're going to do something more intensive than what is proposed, so it depends on what it is, but let's start with the venue, which is the one that's raising the most concern. That will require yet another rezoning. So it'll come back to the alderwoman, and she will hold, like she does, community meetings and get community input. It's not what's intended, it's not what's envisioned, but if anybody were to ask, they'd have to go through this process. Again,
Thank you. I just wanted to confirm that that was what was going on with it, just because you described a process, and I think it might reassure people if they heard that it was a publicly available process and not something else. So thank you.
Yeah, sure. Anna?
Hi, I'm Anna. I live over here at 35th and Morgan. I've been there since '03. I lived on Throop at 32nd for a couple years before that. I remember my great uncle telling me about delivering barges to the Throop Street dock and how vibrant Throop Street was back in the golden era of Bridgeport, when there were businesses, bars, stores, restaurants all up and down Throop Street to serve all of the people coming there to work on the dock, all the people on the boats. So it'd be great to see this rezone. I know Alder Balser and Alder Thompson had rezoned, downzoned a huge amount of the neighborhood. And that's kind of why we don't see the kind of business vibrancy that we see in other neighborhoods. Is it's impossible. And businesses look at that they have to go through this process to open a yoga studio in what was already what was one time a commercial space. And I know Alderley has committed to rezoning things to meet what is built there up and down Halsted along 35th. So I would love to see this rezoned back to its original intended commercial use to get more small businesses in the neighborhood, bringing in that vibrancy as well as tax revenue, right? My question for you, when I've been over in that area, there's no bike parking or not enough bike parking. If this rezoning goes through and you get a tenant in, are you open to working with CDOT to install additional bike racks?
I'm very familiar with how to get bike racks installed from CDOT. And yeah, absolutely, if there's a commercial business there, I would get bike racks installed.
Sorry, go ahead, Rolando.
I was just going to point out that the gentleman with Samsung SM phone has had his hand up for about 15 minutes. His hand may be getting tired.
He can go next. I didn't see any more hands on my end, so I apologize. Samsung, SM, whoever you are, please go ahead and ask your question.
I'm sorry, it's not more of a question, it's more of just a statement. My name is Chris. I live on the corner of Elias and Lyman. I know that's a couple blocks away from them. I have kids. I have a 1-year-old and I have another baby on the way. And let me just tell you, these people are phenomenal people. They've always stop and ask questions about the family. They're very involved. I know like some stuff went south in the past, but let's get, everybody deserves a second chance. They've been in the neighborhood 20 years, I believe they said we talked about. Let's just give them a chance and let's see where it goes. You know, it could be positive and it could be negative, but we do not know unless we give it a try. I just don't want the past to stop them from being, doing what their plans to do. They, like you said, that they put roots down in the neighborhood for a reason.
Thanks for your comment. I'm reading through the chat and looking for questions. There are a handful of comments here. I'm trying to summarize as there were a lot of comments. I don't want to beat a dead horse here. Have there been any other advertisements for your space on Peer Space at all, like to use it as a venue? No. Okay. Have any of the neighbors that are here observed any other activity going on in the event, say, since that? Okay, so nothing has gone on since then. I will say we have had interest from somebody who wanted to open a yoga studio and inquired about using the space. And we also had an inquiry from someone else who was interested in using it for a small, I don't know what was that?
Artist studio.
Or like an artist studio.
Okay.
So those are kind of the type of people who are interested in it so far. And we have not advertised that it is a commercial space at all. These are people who just know us.
I've had my kids' parties there, but that's my home. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and you're not planning on opening a business yourself? in
No,
this
we
space?
would just like to rent to a small business owner,
Mhm.
potentially, yes, office space would maybe be something.
Artist studio.
Artist studio, yoga studio, dance studio.
Yeah.
Okay.
Saw those floors, oh my gosh. Why not?
So they don't have a business plan because there is no plan for business. What they're asking for is for a zoning change that would allow for a number of business functions under this category, business uses, I apologize, under the B2-2. Anything that falls within that as a permitted use would be something that is eligible here. They've made it clear that this is not going to be an event venue. Rolando, can this be a cafe or turned into a restaurant?
It can be a small cafe, yes, it could be a restaurant.
Okay, so that, and then
It
from,
it cannot have a big bar. So this can't be a sports bar.
right, so the God. And again,
Hang on,
The-
what was that last part?
that
It could be a
no,
restaurant?
it could be a restaurant, but it can't be a bar. Yeah,
My biggest concern is if it turns into something big.
I mean, we just went from
We
a
don't have
yoga
any place to
studio to
put
a
the-
restaurant.
I'm asking I want to call out potential uses. I don't,
No, that's what
Yeah,
Orlando.
yeah. No, that it could be, that's, because I just asked the question about allowable uses. So I want to be clear about that.
I will tell you, I used to work at a small restaurant on Oakley and the residents complained all the time. There was no place to park. Like they would get, and I know, like I live on Lyman, we get overflow from Maria's. We get overflow on the weekends for Maria's when it's crowded because there's no place to park on Bonfield and there's no place to park on Keeley. And they park on Lyman and people coming from Archer park on Lyman. And there's no parking. That's my concern is that it becomes something big. And I have a garage.
So I don't want to miss.
There would have to be huge renovations to be a restaurant, like
And that's not something that.
hoods and the kitchen that's in there is not like a commercial kitchen. There would be massive, overhaul of building. That's not at all really what we're pursuing.
Yeah.
So they live on top of it with a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
I mean, I've been in the
Yeah.
neighborhood for 53 years. So
Yeah.
I've been in the.
I just think it doesn't seem like they're gonna wanna have a place, a really disruptive thing underneath them.
The owners of my restaurant live upstairs from theirs, so.
Yeah, but I was just, if the older woman asked me a question, I was just going to be honest, that's what's permitted. That doesn't mean it's
Yeah.
likely. And I guess
Yeah.
what you're hearing is it's not likely to be a restaurant because of the huge investment that would have to be made in the space to create a commercial kitchen and all the ancillary spaces needed for a restaurant. It is more conducive to a yoga studio, artist studio, something like that, that is low intensity, doesn't need the infrastructure.
Got it. So there's a comment here. We need to know the exact business operating. They don't want you saying that you're going to operate a yoga studio and it turns into something else. I asked about the restaurant because I wanted to just elucidate just an example of what could potentially go there. And I appreciate that you because that was my next question. Like, are you looking to make renovations, like major other investments? Because that would be required for something like a restaurant.
I think the answer for that was no, that they're
Yeah.
not. They're looking to lease the space as is.
Yes, correct.
This is the same sort of comment here. I just fear we're being told this would possibly be a dance studio or a yoga studio and it ends up being something else. Wish there was a solid idea for a plan for the property. It seems like they're open to options. If you want to convince neighbors, it's necessary to have a solid plan. These comparisons aren't realistic. Other supposedly previous illegal small businesses do not cause a visible issue on the public street. And most people, as you said, do know they exist. Yours operated and is well known to everyone because in a few months because of these issues. Okay. Yes, Matt, Malik, and then we'll go over back to you, Anna. Go ahead, Matt.
If you guys, if the zoning change moves forward and you're unable to secure a commercial tenant, are you guys open to a residential conversion? Is that at all the cards?
That would probably be what we would do. Yeah, we would convert it into an apartment
And that is why we're rezoning to a B2. So the B2 would allow that residential conversion.
Yeah, I'll just say from personal experience of having been to a few of these meetings that if the use case doesn't end up going through, I've never seen it go from B zoning to C zoning. It is almost always a residential conversion. So just to kind of lay out like what the possible use cases are, that seems to be like the emerging likelihood. If there's somebody that is looking to rent out the first floor, sounds like the event space is really kind of the main point of concern. So if this revenue plan is not as much of a concern, it could be very, very.
That's a good observation. It's the most likely reuse if it's not something like a yoga studio, artist studio, etc. It would just convert to residential because that's the least cost end result.
Got it. There's a comment here. Rezoning of this property will kind of set the pace for future rezoning meetings as there are several properties up and down Troop Street that could be used for a business because remember there are 0 businesses currently on South Troop Street in its entirety from Eleanor to 31st Street.
Well, there's manufacturing at Hillock and Troop.
Yeah, so no small businesses.
Right now, but that's
right.
because they're all down zone 20 years.
Understood. I'm just,
Yeah.
Again, trying to be fair to everybody. I'm reading the comments. Okay, Anna, go ahead with your question, please, or your comment, whatever it is.
Do you have any tenants who are willing to sign a lease without the rezoning going through, or before the rezoning goes through, or is the potential tenant dependent on the rezoning going through?
No, they wouldn't sign a lease if they couldn't open the business, and it wouldn't be allowed if it was not rezoned, so.
So in case everybody, if you didn't hear the question was is there a tenant currently that pending where they would sign the lease without the rezoning done? And this is the catch-22 of all of it, right? I mean, I will tell you that I've had in other instances new entrepreneurs who found a great location, actually for a yoga studio at one point. Actually, different situation, but yoga studio person came in after. Where they had already signed a 5-year lease. And then they come to find out that the zoning was not appropriate for what they wanted, for the business use that they wanted. So it was going to cost a significant amount of money to go through and ask for a zoning change. This is not like a cheap endeavor to do. It's not something that happens quickly. So the ability to, have something zoned for the potential uses, especially if you want to be able to do something like a commercial or a business, or a residence, this is the zoning change you'd ask for. Okay, Jen Grant, how about you go with your question? Thanks, Anna.
Hi, yeah, I want to echo some of the sentiments about just the character of Diane and Andrew. I moved in next door to them when they lived on Green Street 5 years ago, and they were the first neighbors that I met. Andrew and Diane welcomed us into the neighborhood, welcomed us into their home. Introduced us to some really dear friends in the neighborhood now. And 5 years since, it's been really amazing to see just how those communities have grown, especially with Andrew's bicycle advocacy. I, as a parent as well, remember being so sad hearing that they were going to move off of Green Street and they weren't going to be my neighbor anymore. And I wasn't going to be able to chat and hear the stories about everything that was going on from them every morning. But I was so excited when I heard Diane's idea of being able to have a business and be a parent in the same space. And I think that is, the small business dream, to be able to have a small business where you can take care of your kids, you can be at home with your family, and you can make ends meet, and you can have a business there and contribute to the community. And I also have a question for people who are their new neighbors now. What sort of thing could you imagine being excited about? There's some people saying middle-class people don't do yoga. Okay, what sort of thing would you want to see in your neighborhood? What makes sense to you there, aside from just saying we don't want anybody else in our neighborhood? what do you want to see contributing to that space is something that's interesting to me as a person that lives in Bridgeport.
Thanks for the question and the comment. Any other questions or comments here? Yeah, please, and then I'll go to the gentleman behind you.
I just want to kind of re-synthesize what you mentioned before, which is that, you know, the question at hand seems to be kind of conflated with the general sentiment. And, you know, I personally work in HR. I always say everybody's the protagonist of their own story. So like, I understand that in this case, the neighbors feel wrong done by because of the circumstance with that one graduation party. Obviously, Diane and Andrew feel like they're in the right here, and everybody just wants to live, you know, in our community and do what we think is best for the community. And in some cases, you know, that means keeping it very quiet, not letting anyone else in. And in some cases, that means, oh, we want more small businesses as long as they're not disruptive. And people have different opinions about those things, but I think a lot of this has become about Diane and Andrew's character. And, you know, I mean, I personally think they're great people. It seems like a lot of people here also think that. A lot of other people are saying they're terrible people, they're not to be trusted. But really the question is, should that building allow for a quiet resident or quiet commercial use tenant? And like, ultimately, you know, they're not even, you know, as the point was made, they're not even running the business anymore, right? Like, yes, that was their thing for a short while, but like the question of whether, yeah, a yoga studio or a tax preparer or whoever can like go in there and have, like, I am of the opinion that that is good for the neighborhood, particularly because that's what I want in my neighborhood. I want more small businesses, and particularly in these places where that is already developed for that use, it makes sense. And, you know, I understand the concerns about parking. I think, you know, the way that the residential permits are designed is to account for that. And I know people park illegally, right? But that's where, you know, getting the Department of Finance involved and things like that, that there are other levers to pull that can address some of those concerns. But ultimately, this question, I mean, a lot of the vitriol in the chat is like, you know, against them as people. And it's like, really, they just own a property that is not at its highest and best use right now. And you know, that's what I'm here for.
And appreciate that. What's your name?
Alexis.
Alexis, thank you, Alexis, for kind of just recentering us on that. I think the other question that I'm hearing in the chat, personalities notwithstanding, is the question of whether or not residents want businesses on Throop Street. So like that's definitely in here. And again, I'm not going to make a decision on this today. I want more feedback from folks that live in the area, because this also begs the question, because the comment someone made earlier is that it does set a tone for whether or not the place across the street, if yours gets approved, then do the people across the street then apply for something for a business use as well? I want to ask a clarifying question to Rolando or Jimena before we go to the gentleman here with his question or comment. If they were not trying to put a business on the ground floor, could they put an apartment in there with the current zoning at RS3? I already know the answer, but if you can answer the question on the record, that would be good.
I think we need to go to RT4 or RM 3.5.
So it would still require a zoning change, just FYI for everybody. Like if a business wasn't even a question, in order to make that ground floor unit, let's be honest, the building was never single family residential. Everything was downzone, at like many blocks in this ward were, that's a whole other, for a different meeting, okay? I'm fully aware, and I have, since I've been here, been upzoning lots of things. The question, I think the other question in the mix here is from the folks that are that live in the area, not just along Throop Street, but along Lyman and all of those other smaller streets. Do they want businesses now? Because I have heard in some areas where people want more small businesses sort of in the interior. And then I've heard in other places like 26th Street, I've heard from a lot of neighbors that they never wanted any more businesses to come on that street. If a business closed down, they had some agreement with the previous alderman that nothing would, no new businesses would be added. So, you know, I want to be responsive. I think that's not within the character for 26th Street, but you know, I am interested in what.
Sugar Shack.
So a separate conversation. You don't live over there. But I want to make sure. So if you wouldn't mind, please sharing with your neighbors that I do want to hear from them, and for all of you here, pro or con. give me feedback, because that will help me in making a decision. Sir, you had a question, please go ahead.
Yeah, the question.
Or comment, yeah.
Parking is probably my biggest concern.
Mhm.
I come and go all hours of the day and night, depending on what's going on for work. And I can tell you that I've parked all the way as far as Loomis and,
Wow.
and Lyman.
Mhm.
And when you go out the next morning, you gotta bring stuff with you. Guess what? You gotta carry the stuff with you 2 or 3 blocks. Or drive your car and illegally park your car while you load it up, because there just isn't any parking. When it snows, and I'm sure the business is gonna be run 365 days a year, where do you park all these vehicles if it's a small yoga studio? Where do these people park when they come? 8 or 10 people that are in the yoga class, where do they go with their car?
Well, I think that the assumption that everybody will be driving is not necessarily a totally fair assumption, because here's what I would think, that a yoga studio that, I mean, I'm not defending a position at all, I'm just, practically
Any type
speaking.
of business, we
Yeah.
can say it's a yoga
Yeah.
studio, it could be any business.
But
I applaud you guys for going through the process and taking time out with all the neighbors to do this, because it's not easy.
Yeah.
But think about where are these people gonna park when they come for whatever business it is?
I think they're hoping that more people are gonna be walking from within the neighborhood. Go ahead with your.
There's also a giant parking lot next to St. Barb's that can be very easily leased to a church that needs the money.
So,
Have we talked to the church?
I mean, they're currently
talked
selling
to the
off the
church?
property, so that would be up to the business.
I would like to read
We're happy to talk to the church.
It's not a bad option.
Yeah.
It's not a bad option.
I know they're selling the school.
They're
and
selling
this
the
parcel.
stuff on the other street, on Quinn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's nowhere to put 10 cars each day.
Although I'll say in
True.
front of the church and in front of the convent and everything, no one parks there at all, really.
That's not.
Some of it is,
It's
some of it is actually
might be permanent.
specifically for-
From 4 to
like for
6.
people with disabilities.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
No, I'm just speaking up as I spoke to, I'm a parishioner at that parish.
Sure.
Okay.
So, and I'm actually taking notes on behalf of the pastor and people who work there. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear. I mean, if you want to start a dialogue, I'd be happy to be the conduit for that. It's just one of those things where a conversation has not happened. So
Yeah.
That's a great option, and that will alleviate a lot of the problems that the neighbors do have.
Mhm.
That needs to be looked into.
Well, and I think as a separate issue, parking in the area is something I'm happy to talk to residents about. Look, the reality with residential permit parking zones is that you could have it on one block, but if it's not on your block, then everybody's gonna come to your block, right? So that's what happens. So it is a big game of whack-a-mole, and I wish we had a better solution for this. I'm half inclined to just make the whole ward like a residential permit only, so that we don't get the problems of folks coming in to take CTA, parking their cars in front of your house all day. So that, and if they work late, this is what I ran into on my own street. I live in Chinatown. We have residential permit parking. The reason we got it probably 15, 20 years ago at this point is all the restaurant workers in Chinatown they would get picked up in Chinatown because these vans would come take them to the suburbs. But they would park their cars after I was gone. But when I got home, because they don't get off till late, 10, 11 o'clock at night, and I get up in the morning, street's empty, and nowhere to park your car. So we made adjustments for that. We can look at making some adjustments to parking too. And parking is a challenge everywhere. It really is.
It's also possible to do permit parking that's not 24/7.
Correct.
Like
Yeah.
to have permit overnight is a very easy solution to parking on Troop Street. Because having newly gotten permit parking on Farrell Street north of Lyman, we never had anything because all of the people who couldn't park on Troop Street or Lyman would park on our street. And now the problem is just sort of cascading.
Yes.
But
Everybody's
there's
got
plenty of parking on
Keeley.
Yeah.
No, because the Keeley people parked on.
I
Farrell.
get people from Keeley parking in front of, I mean, and I have a garage, so it
Yeah.
is not a problem for me. But I know I live next door to a building that probably has 6 or 8 apartments in it.
Yeah.
And they, a ton of cars.
Yeah. And imagine
And
living on
sometimes
Archer.
Sometimes they block the alley.
Yeah.
Because they're squeezing their car in and it's just this much too far. But
Yeah.
it's fine, I'm an adult, I can go around the block, but.
But I think the parking problem has a solution.
All right, there's a few new comments here. I'm sorry, you had your hand raised. I apologize.
Oh, that's okay. My name's Renee. I live on 31st Street. I'm very much in support of the zoning change. mostly because I want a yoga studio. But I also just want to point out that like Andrew and Diane aren't asking for anybody to approve their business. They're asking to change the zoning so that someone else can come start a business. You're not a yoga teacher, right? No. Like, so I just to answer to a lot of people who seem to be concerned about a lack of a business plan. Their business plan is renting out a space that is ready to go.
Yeah. Okay.
Alderwoman, I'm apologizing because I have to run because I have to
Yeah.
be somewhere at 7 and I'm going to be late. But Jimenez
Thanks
here
for
if you have
hanging
more
with us
questions.
this long. I know. Thanks, Rolando. And I
I'm
know
here.
Jimenez is going to stay, and we'll wrap things up here. I see the comments, and trust me, these will all be saved here. I'm just reading through. Okay. I don't even know how I did that.
You did it with your hand.
Oh,
And you do a thumbs up, it'll.
that's crazy. I've never seen that before. I was like,
Turned it off on my Zoom immediately. I was
that's a little freaky. I did not mean to like do the okay, and I like gave the symbol. I'm gonna stop doing it now because I'm gonna do it again. So I've got all the feedback from the comment section here. Thank you. There was just one question here that someone asked if they could, what's stopping them currently from making the first floor an apartment. In their current zoning, which is RS3, that means single family residential up to 3 stories of this. And my point was this building was never a single family residence. That whole block in that area was downzoned to RS3. That was very common at some point in the past before I was ever around. So they cannot legally convert that to an apartment. Again, for those of you that join late, maybe, the zoning category that they're looking for is B2-2, which would allow for some limited business uses or a ground floor residential unit. I imagine that, if they're not able to, even if this goes through, if you're not able to get a commercial or a business to rent it, you will look at, because you want it to work for you. You don't want it. I mean, anybody that invests in real estate wants real estate to work for you, so you don't want something sitting empty. So this is about having some options essentially based on the request that they've made. But it would require, if they were just strictly going residential, then it would require a zoning change to an RT4. Okay. If there are no more questions, again, I'm not going to make a decision on this. I'm going to leave this open for additional comments and concerns from neighbors. If you have neighbors that weren't able to make the meeting, please have them reach out. I will put once the recording is uploaded, we'll include a link to an email address that people can send their questions and comments to. I'll make sure that we get the word back out. If we need to reconvene for anything, I'll be in communication with the 2 of you, Andrew and Diane. But no decisions will be made today. And I'll make sure that we'll convene a second meeting just so that I can be sure that I'm not making any decisions I want all of this to be public at the end of the day. We will end the meeting here unless there's any other questions. I didn't see any other hands raised. I appreciate all of the time that people spent here. Please send your comments and additional questions to me here regarding this particular zoning change. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.